How long does it take to see results from CJC-1295 and Ipamorelin? In this video, I'm going to go deep into how you can stack these peptides together, why it's advantageous, how long it takes you to get results when it comes to body composition. We'll talk about results for sleep, results for energy, and then we'll also dive into some of the mechanisms of action, and I'll even share with you some case studies. So let's jump in. So CJC-1295 and Ipamorelin, these are working on the growth hormone pathway, specifically on your pituitary. So one of the things that happens as we age is our pituitary doesn't have the same responsiveness that it did when we were younger. I mean, if you remember when you were younger, you would recover from anything. I would remember being in Hell Week with football where we'd practice twice a day. And I'd wake up the next day a little stiff and sore, but after a little stretching, I'd feel good as new. And that was because I had lots of growth hormone. As I've gotten in my late 40s, pushing 50, I'm like, man, I really want to maintain this growth hormone level. And when I started using CJC Ipamorelin, it became an instant favorite of mine. Two things happened to me. And, you know, if you're looking at how long results take, well, the healthier you are, the sooner you'll experience results has been my experience. So I was pretty healthy when I started utilizing this in my mid-30s. And one of the things I noticed is my sleep improved tremendously. I had a lot of stress. I had 5 different clinics that I was running at the time. There's a lot going on in my life, and it was fun. I mean, it was part of my passion. But sleep was something that I suffered with. Even though I had good sleep hygiene, I'd get to bed on time, I wouldn't eat, before going to sleep. But man, I would still wake up in the middle of the night thinking about all the things I had to do the next day and the things I didn't get done the day before, the patients I had to respond to, these case studies that we're going deep in our medical reviews. And so CJC, when I started taking it, I got way better deep sleep. I mean, my sleep scores, I was an early adopter with an Oura Ring, and my sleep scores would be in like the 60s and 70s when I started taking CJC-1295. Literally within the first day, my sleep scores jumped up to the 80s and 90s percentage. So for sleep, you may see results sooner. You'll just have to try it out. With energy and body composition, what I found in most of our clients is it does take about 8 to 12 weeks. Now, the way you can accelerate this is by adding in a GLP-1. So if you add in like a Peptide, which is called like a triple agonist, it's the GLP-1, it's a GIP and glucagon, or tirzepatide, or even semaglutide, you'll see a faster metabolic change where people are losing on average 7 to 8 pounds in that first 30 days. But if you're just taking CJC-1295 and Ipamorelin alone, maybe you've already been on GLP-1s, you're cycling off those, which is a good idea to cycle off of those occasionally. Make sure you do a smaller dose and work with smart providers who know how to utilize peptides. But what you'll see is a change in your muscle mass. So you'll start noticing more definition. A lot of our clients, they notice an increase in the visibility of their abs, which is great because no one wants to carry around visceral fat. But one of my clients, in fact, he's 62 years old, and he said, look, Regan, I want to be as fit as I was in college. And I said, all right, well, how fit were you in college? And he said, well, I was a track runner and I had visible six-pack. I weighed 165 pounds and he's roughly 6 feet tall. And so I said, all right, we got about 20 pounds to lose. Let's get you there. And so he lost about 10 pounds and on the GLP-1, but he said, I don't want to be on this any longer. I want to actually start building muscle mass. And so I said, all right, well, let's just put you on CJC-1295 Ipamorelin. And what we noticed is his body composition, he started leaning out, but he actually started gaining more muscle. And he had a before picture. He had a picture of him in college. Remember, he's 62. And this is almost 40 years later. And we have a picture of him now, and he's got a nice six-pack. He looks better than he did in college. But CJC-1295 was the pathway that his body responded best to. We were using 5-amino-1-MQ, cycling on MOD-SC for that myostatin inhibition. We also got him on a peptide called ACE-031. And we measured the circumference of his thighs, and after ACE-031, just 29 days, he gained 6% of increased volume in his already very muscular thighs. So CJC-1295 It's not something that you want to take every day. You want to take this 5 days on, 2 days off. You want to give your body a break. You don't want to continually be pulsing growth hormone. And then the other thing about it is you've got to take it in a fasted state. So ideally, right before bed is when you can take it. I also find that it does cause a flushing effect. That's one of the side effects that was limited. In the clinical trials, they found that too many of the participants, they had these flushing effect that they didn't like. And so this treatment actually never made it to FDA approval. On the other side though, they're finding that it was one of the most beneficial peptides, shorter chain of amino acids, I believe it's 24. But what they found is that people really love this peptide. They did better when it came to body composition changes, but it is one that does carry some risks because if you have the flushing effect, it's going to be a little more immunogenic, meaning your immune system may recognize these proteins as a threat because every peptide structure, it's a sequence of amino acids, and they're going in and turning on genes that are dormant. So similar to your pituitary gland, the genes start getting turned off for growth hormone because it feels like after about the age of 35, the universe just wants to recycle us. And so I use growth hormone peptides like CJC-1295 with Ipamorelin to turn that genes back on. I'm like, I'm not ready to have it be dark in here. And so CJC can help. But one of the studies they found is looking at CJC-1295, they said, okay, there's 3 things it does cognitively. It helps increase BDNF, and that's been well documented. This growth hormone is very powerful for turning on and unlocking the gene for BDNF. And that's exactly what IGF-1 does. That supports brain repair. It creates more neuroplasticity. The second thing is people notice immediate clarity. You know, CJC-1295, I did it this morning with Ipamorelin. And you always want to stack it with Ipamorelin because you get a greater pulse, up to about 7 times greater pulsatility of growth hormone when you have Ipamorelin, and you don't get the hunger. Ipamorelin is a somatostatin inhibitor, so the more you can keep that lid on somatostatin, you get a little greater pulse of growth hormone because every system in your body has got an on and an off switch. And Ipamorelin is a growth hormone releasing peptide you can use alone, or you can use it with CJC. And Ipamorelin is one of the safest growth hormones with some of the best benefits because it doesn't trigger hunger. The other thing they found cognitively, it had neuroprotective benefits. So it's a great way of protecting your brain. If that's helpful for you, if that's meaningful, I'm sure it is. We all want to protect our brain. And then the cardiovascular benefits, what most people see is a measurable improvement in their overall oxygen utilization. Even testing VO2 max, we see a rise in VO2 max in just 30 days of using this. Why this works that way is because anytime you're activating IGF-1, and one of the studies out of Canada that was published in 2006, they found that a single administration of CJC-1295 increased IGF-1 levels by 1.5 to 3 times in the blood for up to 14 days. So it turns on that pathway, and when you have IGF-1, it activates the endothelial function, which is surrounding in all the blood vessels. So if you want good heart health, this CJC-1295 with Ipamorelin creates better vasodilation and constriction, better blood flow. And then you'll also see a lowering of blood pressure, improved cholesterol ratios, and better recovery after exertion. So in the study, what they did is the authors, they had this idea. They said, well, what if we studied these growth hormone secretagogues? And we stacked Ipamorelin, CJC-1295. Now this was done in animals. I haven't seen it conducted in humans. We've done it for over a decade with our own humans who are in our practice. I've done it myself. But what they found is that when you bring these together, these 2 peptides, you're going to see that there is, in the cardiac remodeling anyways, there's an improvement in cardiac remodeling. So the age of your heart is getting younger. You're seeing contractility recovery, and it shows that you have better recovery as well. So these are things you can consider. If you love this video and you're like, I want to go deeper, make sure you go to my video, which shows you exactly when to take CJC Ipamorelin. I'll see you on the next video. I'm Regan Archibald. Thanks for joining.